The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council headquarters sparkled under the light of three suns. Inside, representatives from 200 space-traveling species gathered for their yearly meeting about habitable worlds. The round chamber buzzed with voices speaking dozens of languages, while translation devices worked overtime to keep up with all the conversations. At the center of the chamber, High Counselor Rex stood tall on his four legs, his gray scales reflecting the soft blue light from the floating screens around him. He tapped his ceremonial staff 3 times on the crystal floor, bringing immediate silence to the chamber. "Fellow representatives," he began, his voice firm but tired, "we gather here today to discuss the ongoing crisis of overpopulation in our major systems. Our surveys have found 57 new planets capable of supporting life, but 43 of them are—" He paused, his inner eyelids blinking rapidly. "Water worlds." A collective shudder passed through the assembly. Ambassador Pole from the desert planet Dry 7 wrapped his protective suit tighter around himself, even though the chamber was completely dry. Next to him, Representative Mork of the mountain colonies dropped his data pad, the sound echoing through the silent chamber. Yes, I understand your reactions," Rex continued, raising one of his 4 hands to calm the murmuring crowd. "In our 1,000 years of space exploration, no species has ever successfully colonized a water world. The very thought of living on a planet covered mostly in liquid." He shuddered, unable to finish the sentence. The floating screens around him displayed images of various water worlds. Beautiful blue spheres spinning slowly, their surfaces rippling with endless oceans. Despite their beauty, every alien in the room viewed them with a mixture of fear and disgust. "But we cannot ignore these worlds forever," Rex pressed on. "Our populations grow, our resources dwindle, and these planets, however terrifying, offer vast opportunities. The Council has classified them as hazardous for generations, but perhaps it's time to—" A loud alarm cut through his speech. The screens around him flickered, changing to show a small ship approaching the Council's space station. It wasn't like any vessel they had seen before. "High Counselor," called out the Chief of Security, his tentacles writhing with excitement, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from an unknown species." Rex straightened his ceremonial robes. First contact was always a momentous occasion, even if it interrupted important meetings. "Put them through," he commanded. The main screen lit up with an image that made several representatives gasp. The creature on screen looked mostly normal, with 2 arms and 2 legs, but its skin wasn't scaled or plated. It looked soft and vulnerable. It wore a blue uniform with strange markings. "Greetings, I'm Captain Rogers of the Earth exploration vessel Pacifica. We come in peace and hope to establish diplomatic relations." "Welcome, Captain," Rex responded formally. "We are honored to make your acquaintance. Please, tell us about your world." The captain smiled, causing several representatives to flinch. Showing teeth was considered aggressive in many cultures. Earth is a beautiful planet, about 70% covered in water. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Representatives jumped from their seats, some hiding behind their chairs, others rushing for the exits. Rex himself took a step back before composing himself. You live on a water world?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Yes," Rogers replied, looking confused. "Most of our cities are near oceans or large lakes. In fact, many of our people swim in water for fun." The translation devices struggled with the word swim, as most species had no equivalent term. When they finally processed it, explaining it as voluntarily submersing oneself in liquid for pleasure, 3 representatives fainted. Rex stared at the screen, his 4 hands gripping his staff to keep steady. In all his years serving the Council, nothing had prepared him for this. A species that not only survived on a water world but enjoyed being in water. It was unthinkable. As medical teams attended to the fainted representatives, Rex realized that everything was about to change. The galaxy would never be the same after today. 2 weeks after the shocking introduction at the Galactic Council, Captain Rogers stood in the massive welcome hall of the Council's space station. The hall had been specially modified for the human delegation. All water features had been removed, and humidity controls worked overtime to keep the air as dry as possible. Rogers tried not to smile as he watched alien representatives peek at his team from behind pillars and corners. News about humans and their water-living habits had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Some called them water demons, others liquid walkers, but most simply called them impossible. Captain, High Counselor Rex approached, keeping a polite but noticeably large distance. We have reviewed your initial data about Earth. Our scientists, well, they're having trouble believing some of these reports. Rogers nodded, pulling out his tablet. The screen showed videos of everyday Earth life. Children splashing in pools, surfers riding waves, divers exploring coral reefs. With each new image, Rex's scales shifted color from gray to pale white. "This can't be real," Rex whispered, his forehands trembling. "Your young ones. You throw them into water on purpose." "We call it swimming lessons," Rogers explained. "Most human children learn to swim before they learn to read. It's considered a basic life skill." A thin alien with transparent skin rushed forward, nearly knocking over Rex. "Fascinating," he exclaimed, introducing himself as Dr. Pip, the Council's chief xenobiologist. "Tell me, how do you prevent your organs from dissolving in the water?" Rogers blinked in surprise. "Our organs don't dissolve in water. We're actually made up of mostly water ourselves." Several nearby aliens fainted at this revelation. Medical teams, now well practiced after 2 weeks of similar incidents, rushed forward with smelling salts and calm patches. But what about the pressure?" Dr. Pip continued, his transparent skin showing his rapidly beating hearts. "The crushing depths. The monsters that surely live in such vast liquid expanses." Rogers pulled up more videos. Deep-sea exploration vessels, submarine crews, and underwater research stations. "We've explored our oceans down to their deepest points," he explained. "We've built cities near water, vessels to travel on it, and submarines to explore under it. Some of our people spend months underwater in special habitats." The medical teams prepared for more fainting aliens, but this time the watchers were too shocked to faint. They stood frozen, their various appendages hanging limp at their sides. High Counselor Rex finally found his voice. "Captain Rogers, you must understand our position. In our history, every species that attempted to colonize a water world failed. The few that tried sending explorers never saw them return. Water worlds have been marked as death zones for thousands of years." Rogers nodded thoughtfully. "We understand your concerns. That's why we've brought something special to demonstrate." He turned to his communications officer. "Tell the Pacifica to begin." On the massive view screens around the hall, a new image appeared. The Pacifica, hovering above the space station's large observation sphere, had opened its cargo bay. Something was emerging. A large transparent container filled with water. "This is a standard Earth swimming pool," Rogers explained as the container moved towards the observation sphere. "With your permission, we'd like to install it here at the station. Our team can demonstrate basic water safety and swimming techniques." The aliens watched in horror and fascination as human engineers, wearing what looked like ridiculously flimsy protective suits, actually standard spacewalk suits, guided the pool into position. "You want to bring water? Here." Rex's voice cracked. "Into the station." "Just a small amount," Rogers assured him. "Enough to demonstrate that water isn't just safe, it can be enjoyable." As the pool was secured into place, Rogers watched the aliens' reactions. Some had fled the hall entirely. Others stood rooted in place, and a brave few moved closer to the windows to watch the installation process. "Tomorrow," Rogers announced, "we'll show you why humans love the water. It's time for the galaxy to overcome its fear of water worlds, and we're here to help." Rex looked at the pool, then at Rogers, his scales shifting through various colors of distress. "May the Ancient Ones help us all," he muttered. The observation sphere of the space station was packed with alien representatives from across the galaxy. They pressed against the safety rails, keeping well back from the newly installed swimming pool that gleamed in the center of the room. The water inside rippled slightly with the station's vibrations, causing several aliens to step even further back. Captain Rogers stood at the pool's edge, wearing simple swimming shorts and a t-shirt. Behind him, his crew members Tom and Linda were doing light stretches, also in their swimwear. The aliens had been horrified to learn that humans wore almost nothing while entering water. "Today," Rogers announced, his voice carrying through the translation devices, "we'll show you that water isn't just safe, it's a natural environment for humans." Before anyone could protest, Rogers pulled off his shirt and dove into the pool. The splash made several aliens shriek, and Dr. Pip's transparent skin turned completely white with shock. But their horror turned to amazement as Rogers surfaced, swimming smooth laps across the pool. "Impossible," whispered Rex, all four of his hands gripping the railing. "He moves through it like it's air." Tom and Linda joined their captain, demonstrating different swimming styles. They floated on their backs, performed underwater flips, and even had a small race across the pool. The alien audience watched in complete silence, their various appendages trembling. Dr. Pip was the first to break the silence. "But how do you breathe?" "We hold our breath underwater," Linda explained after surfacing. "Most humans can hold their breath for at least a minute, and trained divers can go much longer. You voluntarily stop breathing." A collective gasp went through the crowd. "Would anyone like to try?" Rogers asked, moving to the pool's edge. "We can start in the shallow end, where you can still stand." The aliens backed away so quickly they nearly caused a stampede. All except one, a young alien named Kip, whose blue fur was standing on end with excitement. I would like to try," Kip said, his voice shaking. "My people were ocean dwellers once, before we evolved to land. Our ancient texts speak of it." Under careful guidance from Linda, Kip removed his outer protective gear. His species' natural fur provided enough protection for brief water exposure. With Rogers holding one of his three-fingered hands and Linda holding the other, Kip took his first step into the pool. "It's warm," he said in surprise, "and it feels familiar somehow." The audience watched in stunned silence as Kip took another step, then another. Soon he was standing waist-deep in the water, his fur floating around him like a blue cloud. High Counselor Rex moved closer to the pool, his scales shifting to a deep purple of official declaration. "Captain Rogers," he announced, "the Council has made a decision. We have a challenge for humanity." Rogers climbed out of the pool, accepting a towel from Tom. "We're listening. There is a planet, Aquarius 7. It's the most promising water world we've discovered, rich in resources with a breathable atmosphere. If humans can establish a permanent colony there within 1 Earth year, we will grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Federation and exclusive rights to develop other water worlds." The human crew exchanged excited looks. This was exactly the opportunity they'd hoped for. However, Rex continued, "If you fail, if even one human life is lost to the waters, we will mark Earth as a quarantine death world. No contact, no trade, no future in the galaxy." A heavy silence fell over the observation sphere. Even Kip stopped splashing in the pool. Rogers looked at his crew, then back at Rex. A smile spread across his face. "High Counselor, humanity has explored every ocean on our world. We've built cities below sea level, survived tsunamis, and learned to dance with the waves. We don't just survive in water. We thrive in it." He extended his hand to Rex. "We accept your challenge." As Rex hesitantly shook Rogers' still wet hand, Kip called out from the pool, "Can I join the colony? I want to learn to swim too." No one had ever seen a High Counselor's scales turn quite that shade of green before. The loading bay of Earth's orbital station buzzed with activity as the colony ship Deep Dive prepared for its historic journey. Dr. Jack Miller watched the loading crews secure the last of their underwater farming equipment. As the mission's lead marine biologist, he had spent months selecting the perfect mix of Earth sea life to establish on Aquarius 7. "Nervous?" asked Dr. Mary Walker, appearing beside him. The deep-sea engineering expert had designed most of their underwater habitats, combining years of experience from Earth's oceanic research stations. "Excited," Jack replied, checking his tablet. "Did you see the latest scans from Aquarius 7? The water there has almost the same composition as Earth's oceans. It's like finding a second home." Above them, a massive window looked out into space. Dozens of alien ships hovered nearby, their crews watching the humans prepare for what they considered a suicide mission. The galactic media had dubbed it the Water World Challenge, and billions of beings across the galaxy were following the story. "Last call for personal items," Tom announced over the speakers. The former swimming instructor from the space station demonstration had volunteered as the colony's water safety expert. "We launch in 2 hours." Mary smiled as she watched young Kip, their enthusiastic alien volunteer, struggling with a large box. His blue fur was tied back in what looked like a ponytail, and he wore a modified human wetsuit that accommodated his unique body shape. "Need help?" she called out. "No, thank you," Kip replied cheerfully. "I'm getting stronger every day. Swimming practice builds muscles I didn't know I had." The colony team consisted of 50 humans and Kip. They had spent 3 months training together on Earth, where Kip had indeed learned to swim. He now proudly wore a beginner's swimming certificate on his wall, next to his official mission documents. Captain Rogers entered the loading bay, followed by a group of alien observers. The aliens wore sealed environmental suits, thinking the bay's 40% humidity would harm them. "Final inspection," Rogers announced. "Dr. Miller, how are the marine specimens?" "All secure," Jack reported. "The fish eggs are in stasis, the coral samples are stable, and the kelp spores are ready for planting. We'll have an Earth-style ocean ecosystem started within 6 months." "Dr. Walker, habitats." Mary pulled up a hologram showing their planned underwater city. "The main dome is rated for depths 10 times what we'll need. We've got backup systems for the backup systems, and enough spare parts to build 3 more cities if we want to." The alien observers muttered among themselves, their fear and fascination clear even through their protective suits. One of them stepped forward. It was Dr. Pip, still as excited about humans as ever. "But what about the pressure?" he asked. "Our probes showed enormous water pressure at the colony site." "That's why we're building at only 30 meters depth," Mary explained. "Humans regularly dive deeper than that for fun. Our current record for deep diving is more than 300 meters without special equipment." Several aliens had to be helped to chairs as they processed this information. The final hours passed quickly. As the colony team boarded the deep dive, hundreds of alien ships gathered to watch. This launch was being broadcast across the galaxy, with many betting on how long the humans would last. "Colony team, sound off," Rogers called from the bridge. "Engineering ready. Marine biology ready. Medical ready. Construction ready. Swimming instruction ready." That was Tom, adding a light moment to this serious roll call. "Alien relations ready." Kip's voice was filled with pride. As the ship's engines powered up, Jack looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Aquarius 7, waiting for them. Not just a challenge to be overcome, but a new world to explore and understand. "Deep dive, you are clear for launch," came the control tower's voice. "Good luck, and try to stay dry." The human crew laughed at the well-meaning but ironic warning. They were headed to a water world. Staying dry was the last thing on their minds. As the ship lifted off, Rogers sent one final message to the watching galaxy. "Time to show you what humanity can do with a little water." 3 months into the colony's establishment on Aquarius 7, the underwater city of New Atlantis gleamed under the alien sun. Its transparent domes housed thriving gardens, comfortable living quarters, and even a swimming pool. Though, as Tom often joked, they had an entire planet of swimming pools around them. Dr. Jack Miller was monitoring the new coral reef they'd started when the first warning came. The water around him vibrated in an unusual way, sending the newly introduced Earth fish darting for cover. "Control, are you feeling that?" he called through his comm system, floating easily in his lightweight diving suit. "Checking now," Mary's voice crackled back. "Our sensors are picking up some strange weather patterns. Maybe you should." A low rumble cut her off. Through the clear water, Jack saw massive dark clouds gathering above the surface. The ocean around him began to churn. "Everyone back to the city," Captain Rogers' voice boomed through all channels. "We've got a megastorm forming." The alien observation ships in orbit started broadcasting immediate evacuation warnings. According to their data, no underwater structure could survive the approaching storm. Their sensors showed waves building to heights never before recorded on Aquarius 7. Inside the main control room, Mary studied the readings with intense focus. "The storm's creating underwater currents we didn't expect. They're pulling at our anchor points." "Can the city hold?" Rogers asked, watching as the last few divers rushed in through the airlocks. "The domes will hold," Mary replied confidently. "I'm more worried about our power supply. If those currents shift the thermal collectors." A massive crash shook the entire city. Through the dome, they watched one of their power collectors break free, tumbling away in the increasingly violent currents. "We've lost 30% of our power," Tom reported from his station. "Life support is stable, but we can't maintain this depth without full power. The currents will push us deeper." The alien observation ships were now frantically demanding they evacuate. In the 3 months since the colony's establishment, many alien scientists had grown fond of the brave humans. They couldn't bear to watch them die in the crushing depths. Rogers looked at his team. "Options. I can fix the collector," Mary said, already pulling on her diving suit. "But someone needs to hold it in place while I reattach it." "That's suicide," Kip exclaimed, his blue fur standing on end. "The currents are too strong." Jack stepped forward, already in his diving gear. "Not for a synchronized swimming team, Captain." He grinned at their surprised faces. "What? I had a life before marine biology." Within minutes, Mary and Jack were in the water, fighting against currents that would have paralyzed any alien with fear. They moved with the water rather than against it, using the currents to help them reach the broken collector. The alien observers watched in astonishment as more human divers joined them, forming a human chain to stabilize the equipment. Under the surface, in conditions their scientists had deemed unsurvivable, the humans were working as if they were born in the water. "Almost there," Mary called out, her hand steady as she worked to reattach the crucial power supply. "Just hold it steady." A massive underwater tremor hit them. The aliens watching from orbit screamed in horror as the entire human chain disappeared in a cloud of disturbed sediment. Then, one by one, green lights appeared on the life sci monitors. Not only were the humans alive, they were laughing. "The little water never hurt anyone," Jack's voice came through the comms, followed by the sound of power systems coming back online. In orbit, Dr. Pip turned to his fellow observers. "Perhaps," he said thoughtfully, "we've been fearing the wrong thing all these years. It's not the water we should respect. It's the humans who've mastered it." As the storm raged on, New Atlantis stood firm, its lights glowing defiantly in the dark alien ocean. The humans had faced their first major crisis on Aquarius 7, and they'd handled it the way they handled everything involving water, by diving right in. A week after the Great Storm, Jack Miller floated in the now calm waters of Aquarius 7, checking for damage to their coral plantings. The storm had shifted tons of sand on the ocean floor, revealing strange shapes he hadn't noticed before. "Mary, are you seeing this?" he asked through his comm, swimming closer to what looked like a perfectly straight line of stones. "Picking up your video feed now," she replied from the control room. "That's not natural formation. Jack switched on his powerful underwater lights. What he saw made him gasp. Beneath years of sand and ocean growth lay what could only be a wall carved with intricate patterns showing figures swimming through water. "Captain Rogers," Jack called excitedly, "I think you need to see this." Within an hour, a team of humans had gathered at the site. They carefully cleared away more sand, revealing more of the ancient structure. Even Kip joined them, his blue fur waving in the water as he helped brush away centuries of sediment. "It's a building," Mary announced, scanning the structure with their advanced equipment. "And it's huge. Most of it is still buried under the seabed. According to these readings, it extends for at least a kilometer in each direction." "Look at this," Tom called out, pointing his light at a section of wall. The carvings showed beings that looked nothing like humans or any known alien species, but they were clearly swimming, living, and working underwater. Captain Rogers took pictures to send to the alien observation ships above. "Do you realize what this means?" he asked his team. There was an advanced civilization here, one that lived underwater, just like we're doing now. The news spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. Alien archaeologists, who had never dared to properly explore water worlds, were stunned. Their fear of water had caused them to miss evidence of an entire civilization. "The writing is similar to patterns we found on other worlds," Dr. Pip explained over the video link, his transparent skin showing his racing heartbeat. "But we always assumed those were just decorative designs. We never imagined." Using their experience with underwater excavation from Earth's oceanographic missions, the humans carefully uncovered more of the ancient city. They found huge halls with soaring ceilings, advanced machinery preserved by the mineral-rich water, and most importantly, a vast library of crystalline records. They called themselves the Deep Singers, Jack announced after weeks of studying the artifacts. They were a spacefaring race that evolved in the oceans. According to these records, they visited many worlds, building underwater cities everywhere they went. But what happened to them? Kip asked, gently touching one of the crystal records. His people's ancient tales of ocean life seemed more relevant than ever now. Mary had been analyzing the mechanical systems they'd discovered. "From what we can tell, they didn't die out. They left. These records show they found a way to travel through space using water itself. They discovered something they called liquid space streams connecting different galaxies. The implications were enormous. Not only had the humans proved that water worlds were habitable, but they had also uncovered evidence that water might be the key to technologies far beyond current galactic understanding." "All these years," Rogers said, shaking his head, "the galaxy's fear of water didn't just limit their expansion. It blinded them to their own history. These deep singers might have visited every water world we know of, leaving behind clues and technology we never thought to look for." As the humans continued their excavation, more alien scientists began requesting permission to visit the site. Some even asked for swimming lessons, inspired by how easily the humans moved through the water around the ruins. Watching from the surface, where alien ships now gathered in unprecedented numbers, Dr. Pip made a note in his official report. "Perhaps the humans' greatest gift to the galaxy isn't their ability to survive in water. It's their ability to help us overcome our fears and discover wonders we never imagined existed." 1 year after the first humans set foot on Aquarius 7, the observation sphere of the Galactic Council headquarters was transformed. The swimming pool, once viewed with terror, now had a waiting list for basic swimming lessons. At its edge stood Captain Rogers, watching as Dr. Pip helped a group of young aliens learn to float. "Remember," Pip explained, his transparent skin glowing with excitement, "humans are made of water, and so are many of us. We're just returning to our origins." High Counselor Rex approached Rogers, his scales now a calm blue shade that would have been impossible a year ago. "The Council's vote was unanimous," he announced. "Earth is granted full membership in the Galactic Federation, with exclusive rights to develop water worlds. And the best part," Rogers smiled, "is that we hardly need those rights anymore. Look how many species are volunteering to join our waterworld colonies. Around the pool, aliens of various species wore modified swimming gear designed by Mary's engineering team. Some had initially needed special breathing apparatus, but like Kip, they gradually adapted to the water. The sound of splashing and laughter, a noise once considered terrifying in the council halls, now filled the air. The deep singers would be proud, Jack said, joining them at poolside. He had just returned from Aquarius 7, where the underwater archaeology project had become the largest cooperative scientific mission in galactic history. We found more of their records. They always hoped other species would overcome their fear of water. On a large screen above the pool, images showed the thriving colony on Aquarius 7. New Atlantis had grown into a sprawling underwater city, its domes gleaming under the alien sun. The coral reefs they'd planted were flourishing, creating Earth-like ecosystems that attracted both native life and curious xenobiologists. Reports from other water worlds are coming in, Tom announced, checking his tablet. Those ruins we found, they're everywhere. The deep singers left a whole network of underwater cities across the galaxy. We just needed the courage to look for them. Kip, now an official instructor at the newly established Galactic Institute of Aquatic Studies, demonstrated a perfect swimming stroke to his amazed students. His blue fur, once a sign of his species' ancient aquatic past, now served as natural swimming gear. The biggest surprise, Mary added, looking up from her latest engineering plans, was finding out how many species actually had aquatic ancestors. They just forgot their heritage when they moved to land. Rogers watched as another group of alien diplomats arrived for their swimming lesson. A year ago, they would have rather faced a supernova than enter water. Now they eagerly attended classes, trading their protective suits for swimming gear. We're not just teaching them to swim, Rogers said thoughtfully. We're helping them rediscover parts of themselves they forgot long ago. Above them, through the station's massive windows, ships arrived carrying more students, scientists, and explorers. The human success had sparked a renaissance of water-world exploration. Species that once feared water now saw it as a frontier of endless possibilities. Captain, Rex said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement, would you ever have imagined that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy would be teaching us not to fear a simple molecule? Rogers laughed, watching as Pip's students successfully completed their first lap across the pool. Sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't about finding new things, he replied. They're about seeing the familiar in a new way. As the swimming class ended, the aliens emerged from the pool, their faces bright with achievement. They had conquered not just water, but centuries of ingrained fear. Humanity hadn't just proved them wrong about water worlds. They had opened up a whole new chapter in galactic history. So, Kip called out, preparing for his next class, who's ready to learn about deep-sea diving. The eager response from the gathered aliens proved that the galaxy would never be the same again. The age of water worlds had begun, and humanity was leading the way, one swimming lesson at a time.